Well, the Mark Carney communications team has scrambled to release a promotional video showing the Prime Minister flipping a coin at the Grey Cup. It's in stark contrast to what actually happened on the weekend. Prime Minister Carney got booed multiple times during the opening ceremony of the 112th Grey Cup game in Winnipeg.
Joining the team captains is the Prime Minister of Canada, le Premier Ministre du Canada, Mark Carney, and the CEO of Coinbase Canada, Lucas Matheson.
Well, he got booed during the coin toss, and then again during the national anthem when the camera was focused on him. Most of the legacy media downplayed the crowd's negative reaction, but City News had this headline: Prime Minister Carney was met with booing and expletive-filled shouting from some football fans at the 112th Grey Cup game. As video clips spread showing Carney getting a rough ride by the crowd, the PM's communications team pushed out this video replacing the boos with music. No boos heard in that video. Is it an indicator that Canadians have soured on Carney and maybe even regret their decision to elect him Prime Minister? Well, former Liberal MP Dan McTeague will be joining us shortly with his take. A critical budget vote today, the Globe and Mail is reporting the Liberals head into final confidence vote on federal budget, expecting a narrow win. The paper is also reporting that two New Democrat MPs intend to abstain in order to allow the budget to pass. That would be pretty much in keeping with the NDP repeatedly propping up the Liberals during the Trudeau administration. But Liberal MP Mark Garretson says the Liberals are ready to go to the polls if the vote fails to pass.
Are you prepared for an election if that's where we end up?
We're always ready for an election. The Liberal Party has been ready for an election since the last one. We don't want one. We also don't think that Canadians want a Christmas election. But we will certainly be prepared. We are always ready to go. And if it comes to that, then we will proceed to an election.
Well, the Liberals have already survived two confidence votes on the budget, the final one expected this evening. Meantime, parliamentary budget watchdog Jason Jacques says the Liberals have quietly ditched one of the guardrails that help limit government overspending. Let's listen.
The Prime Minister himself said one of the three fiscal anchors for this government was a declining debt to GDP ratio. Don't believe me? Look it up in Hansard. All of a sudden in the budget, that anchor that we've had for 30 years, the most important fiscal anchor, is gone without any discussion whatsoever. And now we're in new territory where potentially we're going to be borrowing substantially more money the next time that there's an economic shock. And it's not for me to judge that. It is for me to point out that nobody has had a meaningful discussion around that.
Earlier this month, bond rating agency Fitch warned Canada its credit rating might be at risk due to its deficit, now running at $78.3 billion. I'm now joined by Dan McTeague, good friend of the radio show as well as the podcast. And Dan joins us. He was, of course, a longtime member of Parliament, a Liberal member of Parliament throughout the 1990s, 80s, 90s, and loves to comment now on the state of things in the country. Welcome, Dan.
Mark, good to be here. Yeah, and 2000s, right to 2011. So,
well,
yeah, I've been around for a while.
Yeah, 18 years covers a long stretch of time. I want to start off asking you about the booing that greeted Mark Carney in Winnipeg for during the opening ceremonies of the Grey Cup. We're already seeing a move by the Carney communications team to put out a video showing him in a much more favorable light, flipping the coin, some slow-mo, some loud music. But I think that they're trying to cover the fact that he got booed multiple times, because it wasn't just during the coin flip, it was also during the singing of the national anthem. I mean, to what degree does this signal, if at all, that people are souring on this guy?
Well, it's trying to prevent the rolling stone, isn't it? I mean, the point is that they are going to try to put as much effort in making a silk purse out of a sow's ear as they can, and in the process, try to defend the dear leader at all costs. Because if there's a perception that he's not popular, somehow they can provide and play on the ignorance of Canadians to think that this guy's the best thing since sliced bread. 8 months on, I think it's pretty clear he's got some issues, mostly that he overcommits and underdelivers. And for that reason, I think most people are starting to tire of his nonsense. He likes to provide a resume, but the only resume we have up to now is, what he's done in England and, of course, what he's done here in Canada. Massive debts, more inflation, more people visiting food banks, and the situation continuing to degenerate. While at the same time, the very reason he was elected to stand up to Donald Trump, not working out very well now, is it?
Not at all. And of course, our trade relations with that country have gone downhill. He promised there would be a deal done by July the 21st, I think was the deadline that was set by the Liberals during the election campaign. That came and went, and here we are. Basically no deal, and a lot of questions about our future relationship with that country as the CUSMA agreement, the USMCA deadline comes around, and discussions around a possible review of that, and reservations on the part of the President of the United States, saying he doesn't even know if he wants that deal. He doesn't want to do any trilateral deals, just want to do bilateral deals. But I'm wondering if this is an indicator that people were expecting something different from Mark Carney when he got in. I think that's one reason why he got elected. This wasn't a politician. He came from outside. He wasn't part of the Canadian political machinery. And so maybe people were expecting something that they didn't get, despite warnings that, this is just more of the same type of policies that we had under Justin Trudeau, and now people are realizing it too late. That's exactly what we're getting. It's just more of the same, including, of course, our budget issues, a $78 billion deficit. That is not good. What do you think?
Well, it's easy to operate and pretend you operate a business and, you go around telling people you balanced the budget in 1997 and you prevented Canada from going into recession in 2008, all of which is baloney. Which he, of course, had tried to put out as if he had accomplished these things. And of course, I was there. I know it's baloney. But, there comes a point where people start to have to realize that this guy isn't, made up, all that is made up to what he had promised to be, and that he is falling significantly short. And he has his defenders. I mean, there's people out there who just hate conservatives and don't want the alternative. I hear a lot of these people getting mad at, Pierre Poilievre. He's mean. He's not nice. Pierre Trudeau wasn't nice. He told people like it was. They didn't like it for that reason. Pierre Poilievre is as blunt. And Carney has no experience in governments or the mechanism of governments. He does need to have a penchant for twisting accounting. Kind of reminds me of Enron 2000 2.0, and where we engage in massive creative financing, which I think the parliamentary budget officer before Carney, true to his take pictures to show he's in a great position, wants to fire this guy and replace him with someone that they can control. But at the end of all of this, the one reality that really hurts the Liberals and hurts their base is that their base is getting poorer. Their base is now heading to food banks. Their base is losing their homes. They can't afford the rent. They probably won't have jobs. And the idea that you can blame all this on Donald Trump is great. But we had bloody problems before January 20th, 2025. A lot of problems. And those problems are now starting to surface. It's convenient that we use Donald Trump. But, at the end of the day, it wasn't just Doug Ford. Donald Trump twice endorsed Mark Carney. So Liberals, with their elbows up, have a lot in common with Donald Trump. You were both on the same side.
Yeah, and of course the big budget vote coming down today, and talk that there's a possibility, albeit a very slim one, that it might not pass. In which case, I guess we would be plunged into a Christmas election. The Liberals say Canadians don't want one. I tend to maybe agree with that. I think if there was an election announced that if the government fell, I think a lot of people would be upset. But I don't know who would bear the brunt, who would take the blame for that. I mean, would the Liberals, would the Conservatives for voting against the budget? What do you think?
There's a lot fewer people today who are happy and enthusiastic with the Liberals than there were back in April. One, because they've lost their jobs, their homes might be lost, their kids can't find work, or they're leaving for other countries. And they realize that the Liberals have 10 years to really mess up the economy in the way our generation of Liberals never did. We tried to improve it as best as we could. But it's kind of strange, even if you had an election, and I think it's highly unlikely, the NDP is going to do what it normally does, duck and run, as they had under Jagmeet Singh. The NDP certainly has to make a decision whether or not they want to merge with the Liberal Party and join the extremism that party has embraced as part of its own, or maybe show some sign of pushing back. I doubt this will happen. They don't even have a leader, let alone any money. But what could happen here, what should happen here, is something that has been tried by my party back in 2008. You remember in 2009, Mark? My leader then, Stéphane Dion, thought it would be a great idea to sit down with Gilles Duceppe of the Bloc Québécois Separatist Party and the NDP and form a coalition government. And the Governor General doesn't have to accept, if after there is a defeat, and I think it's improbable, of the budget, doesn't have to accept Mark Carney's resignation without willing to form a government with someone else who might have that ability. Then we'll see what the NDP is really about. Is it about ducking this, or is it about saying, no, we just don't like the Conservatives? At which point, I come back to my original point. The NDP and Liberals should put an end to the shenanigans. Get a room. You've been in bed together for the past decade or so. Just join, for God's sakes. You're joined at the hip to begin with. There's nothing that distinguishes you except the bloody name itself.
Well, if you look at the NDP and what's left of them, I mean, they're not even a party right now. And you would have thought that they would have learned their lesson last time, which is, you throw in with the Liberals and people start thinking, well, why am I wasting my vote on the NDP? I might as well be voting Liberal because, the NDP votes with the Liberals anyway.
Well, that's what they did last time, eh? That's what they did in April. NDP voters voted Liberal. And just in 2011, the same Liberals could vote NDP. These are people who switch positions very easily. We call this kind of political harlotry for what it is. It's basically, why are you maintaining the pretense of being different when there's absolutely nothing different between a New Democrat and a Liberal? They are so far to the left now, Mark, from my time. My God, I'd have to have the Hubble telescope to try to find them on the far left of the spectrum.
Yeah, we thought we were getting a moderate with Carney. This is one of the things that they sold early on. You remember when they came in, well, Trudeau's gone, so the party won't be so far left. But really, under Carney, what's changed? I mean, it's the same type of policies. I mean, if you look at the amount of spending, for instance, anybody expecting that Carney would be a fiscal moderate or a lot more prudent in terms of limiting the size of the deficit, none of that has happened. That's why I think people are becoming disenchanted. And so an election now, I think the Liberals think, well, if it happens now, the other guys are going to be punished. This is going to be go after the Tories, cut into their seats, block, because they're the ones who opposed the budget and we didn't want an election, so we'll blame them. But I'm not so sure about this. I mean, weird things can happen. They've had 8 months to look at this guy, Mark Carney, and I'm not sure that they're impressed. I think they're unhappy, and part of that, I think, was borne out in the reaction at the Grey Cup, Well,
I can hardly wait till 40,000 lose their jobs, or at least get attrition, or we again see these major cutbacks. The country is broke. Folks, I go back to 1982. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the cupboards are bare. We are in dire straits. What's true in 82 is true today, and for the same reasons. We were irresponsible, we were reckless, we were virtue signaling, we had these all silly aspirational goals. And Mark Carney is no different than Justin Trudeau. He's just a little more careless when it comes to the direction he wants to take, because he thinks that we can somehow change our trade relationship with the United States because he doesn't like what's there, because we're being called on things that I think, frankly, we should have been called on a long time ago. Supply management to begin with. Maybe some of the rather questionable accounting that goes on with, saying, for instance, stumpage fees. I can get, buy my, get all the wood I want from Crown Land for 50 cents an acre. Come on. The Americans have to pay full price for these things. We live in a world in which reality is going to start to become very, very painful. And Canadians who've wished away the idea that somehow we could become a lot stronger did so by saying, We don't want pipelines. We don't want to have strong manufacturing. We don't want to have people investing in Canada. We want to chase them away. It takes 141 pennies to buy a US dollar today. Imagine what that's doing to the cost of food and energy. So I can say these things until the cows come home with bulls on their back, as the expression goes. But I can tell you this, Canadians, you are not in a position to giddily go along with, oh, he has the resume, or, I don't like Donald Trump. You can't afford that anymore. You have to now acknowledge something's gone terribly wrong with your country, and it's going to affect you personally and your family and your children and your grandchildren. That's the cost of Canadians playing this. I don't like Pierre because he's mean. I say that because that's exactly what I saw at the door. She go to several doors last election, said, I've been a Liberal MP for 18 years, part of that in cabinet. I'm not voting Liberal. Why the hell are you? And they sort of look at you with this sort of dumb blank stare. Well, you know what? There's a cost for being silly and not strategic in how you vote. And if there's another election, maybe we'll get a few smarter people. At least we'll know one thing. We're going to have a hell lot more coming to the polls, assuming they can get to the polls without address and without food in their stomach. And that's unfair, and that's unacceptable for a country like Canada.
Well, we saw the underwhelming list of projects. Many of them were already previously announced, of national significance. And I guess there's another list coming up, but no pipelines listed on that, which makes you wonder. I mean, how is he going to cut a deal with Alberta? Now we've got the burgeoning independence movement in that province. I'm not saying it's the majority of people in Alberta, but a lot of people are getting more and more upset. I mean, you've been a keen observer of the energy sector and energy prices in Canada. How is that going to factor in politically in the days ahead? I mean, it's getting more costly heating your home in the wintertime.
Just another layer of bureaucracy to tell you what you can and can't do. Another reason why the rest of the world is saying, I'm going to take a pass on Canada. And for those who think it's no big deal, when you pass up $1 trillion in investment and energy and economic activity, you pass up your standard of living, you pass up the standard of living of your children and that of your grandchildren. And I can't be more emphatic. Canadians have literally dropped their drawers and crapped on their future by saying we could simply spend it all today. Money has no consequences. We can borrow until we're blue in the face. The reality is very, very stark for Canadians. You played the game, you messed around, and now you're going to find out.
This from Premier Ford. It's in the best interest of the country to make sure we pass this budget. Doesn't matter what political stripe you're from.
Yeah. Look, Doug Ford should just be running for the provincial Liberals. I mean, I've known him since he was a baby, since he was a child. We were neighbors together. This is unbelievable. Has Doug got some kind of a death wish that he wants to become? Because I can tell you one thing. I know some of his folks around him thought he could become the leader of the Conservative Party nationally. Good bloody luck with that. I mean, if anything, Trump and Ford have something in common. They both love Carney. God knows why. But I can tell you, Mr. Ford wasn't too happy when he lost billions of dollars of your public money and mine here in the province of Ontario, backing electric vehicles that have now gone bankrupt. I'm talking Bright Drop. And of course, there's others in Brampton. And now he's pretending that this EV thing in battery making in St. Thomas is somehow going to get out there. I think Doug's problem is that he backed the wrong horse, and he can't bring himself to saying, I really messed up here. At the same time, your energy costs and my hydro costs are going through the roof. And by the way, we may not see it on our bills. Where we're seeing it is on public debt every year, thanks to Doug Ford basically aping the Wynne McGuinty green energy plan. You're adding $10 billion to the debt in the province of Ontario each and every year. $10 billion. Now that may be nothing, but I want to remind folks out there in Ontario, that's $1,000 million being put on debt. Imagine the cost of servicing that. What's Ontario's debt? Well, I can tell you it's not great. And now that you've destroyed and laid waste to the internal combustion engine, the automotive sector, and you want to pretend you can subsidize your way into making electric vehicles, good night to the automotive sector. That's probably why Doug Ford thinks Carney is such a great idea. Maybe Doug Ford should be spending a lot more time asking Mark Carney to bring back Brookfield into Toronto rather than sending it to the United States to make Donald Trump happy. If that's good enough for Doug Ford, I'm not sure if he should be really backing Mark Carney's budget, but in fact should be applauding Donald Trump for pulling away another Canadian business from Canada. I don't recall him dumping his shares or Brookfield assets down the drain.
Yeah. I mean, they should be thanking Trump because he's given them an excuse, somebody to blame for all the problems in the country. I mean, that's,
It's
you know,
sad state of affairs, but last time I saw a conservative work that hard to get a liberal elected or retained, it didn't work out so well for them. But I mean, I got to tell you, there's a lot of provincial conservatives who have to be hugely disappointed. Maybe the Liberals will get someone more back at the center to run as leader and take away those votes, because I know there's a lineup of people who want to take Doug Ford, line him up on the 30-yard line, and punt him through the end zone.
Dan McTeague, thank you so much for coming on the show. Powerful stuff as always.
Good to be here, Mark. Thanks for having me.
And that is it for this edition of Straight Up. Appreciate you tuning in, my friends. Let's do it again real soon, shall we? Bye-bye for now.